You are listening to Conversations from Her Design Stories, a project that aims to support and empower female designers in Vietnam.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for agreeing to join the Her Design Story project. I just want to introduce a little bit. My name is Thảo and I'm now a senior student majoring in graphic design in British University, Vietnam. And I'm very grateful and honored that you agreed to join my project today to talk about your experience as a female designer. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi everyone. Hi Thảo. I'm Trà. People also call me Mel. I'm working as an illustrator and sort of a managers to our freelancers at Vietcetera. We are a news media company based in Ho Chi Minh and in Hanoi, and we caters mostly to millennials and Gen Z. Contents about work, life, and basically everything to introduce Vietnam to the world and the world to Vietnam. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your introductions. So in order to start off the interview, I would like to learn a little bit more about you as a designer and also a female designer. So if you had to choose 3 design-related words, what would you to describe yourself? What would those be?
So 3 design-related words. First one would be reference. I work a lot on reference because I'm a self-taught designer and illustrator. So without the influence of others or the understanding of how normally people consume media, it would be really hard for me to come up with ideas on my own. The second would probably be lines because as an illustrator right now, my strength, not really, but I work mostly with lines. And the third ones would be probably feedback because, we cannot work without it. It's a feedback-related industry anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really interesting ways of, choosing the words so it reflects yourself as an illustrator. So What about your design journey, your creative journey? How did you get to where you are now? How did you get to Vietcetera?
Yes, so my story will be probably a little bit unconventional because I did not graduate in graphic design or any design-related studies. I actually studied professional communication, major in advertising at RMIT Vietnam. But while doing my bachelor degrees in communication, I realized that I'm much more of a visual person rather than say strategies or communication per se. So I did a little bit of design here and there. I did some freelancing. I try to make most of my projects at RMIT more of a design related things rather than more communication projects. So after 3.5 years there, I graduated and I interned at Vietcetera. That's my first full-time jobs out of uni. And so the story of how I started Vietcetera is quite fun. So we have to have an internship as the final project for our bachelor degrees. And I send my resume here and there. I do have to say that I do have a strong resume in terms of studies and both. I participate in a lot of awards when I was in uni. So, but at that point, I felt like the place that I would want to work the most would probably be Vietcetera because it's a blend of communication and media, and also there is space there for me, I think, to probably work in video or graphic design, for example. So I applied to Vietcetera, but they didn't have job opening then for, let's say, graphic design or illustration. But I just applied to be an intern. So for a week, I didn't get any response, but there was an event in Saigon called, I forgot the name, but it's sort of like a portfolio review. So there was a lot of different studios or media company or advertising agency there. And the creative directors would see our portfolio and give feedback on. So it's mostly for like students or like first year creative, for example. So I met Hao Chen, our CEO there, and also some others creative directors from, let's say, the lab or Rise, and they gave a lot of feedback on my portfolio and how said come to the company, be our interns. And I said, yeah, I just sent you guys I just sent you guys a mail for like a week or something. So I started 2 years ago as an intern. And then after 3 months, I got on probation and becomes a full-time. And then I have been working for 2 years now. So when I started working, there was no job description of saying to become an illustrator. I actually interned as an intern for the video team. So like help them with collage and that sort of like the graphic design for their video. But then while I was working, the editorial team realized that they do need someone to illustrate their content. So I started illustrating those content. And yeah, so that's sort of how it goes.
I would just want to say that it means that you must have done a really good job that it keeps you there. And
thank you. We are lucky, and we are very grateful that even though the COVID situation got very drastic in the past 1 year and a half, we still managed to stay quite strong.
Wow. I agree. Yeah, Vietcetera just launched its app, right? I haven't got the chance to try it out, but I gotta say that I follow Vietcetera a lot. I read almost every day because I follow yours Instagram, and I really, really like the podcast.
Thank you.
Big fan of the podcast. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah,
just
we really love it.
It's just a fun little questions. Have you ever met any, podcast guests?
Oh yeah. Right now, not because I'm in Hanoi, but like back when I was in the office, it's open plan office. So whenever the guest comes, we will meet them right there. Who have met? Like probably most of the first 10 guests on Have a Sip, I've seen them at the office. Some of the guests of MAD, that Anh Tuân hosts as well. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's so cool. I just watched an episode on, I don't remember the name. MAD. MAD.
MAD.
That episode is about Miss Hado. She's also a female creative director of that magazine.
Yes.
I really want to talk to her, but I just suppose she's really famous. I don't know if I could get in
She's
touch
probably
with
very
her.
busy as well.
Yeah, she's probably very busy too. But it's kind of like one of my goals for this project is one day got the chance to talk to her about this topic.
Okay. Hopefully you can meet her and some others soon.
Yay! I really wish to do that. So what about your favorite project that you have ever worked on? I've seen through your Behance, and there's a lot of editorials project, illustration project, and one that I was really into was the mental health issues. It was very beautifully illustrated.
Thank you. Actually, it's really hard to pick a project I really like because I basically illustrate every day, and like every week there will be 2-3 articles that I worked on. So right now I cannot make sense of how many illustration set I have made, but there was one project that is not released yet. It's for a book. So this is a non-profit project that I collaborate with some others, designers and illustrators. And I really like it because so I can tell a little bit about the content. Is about cancer patients, so breast cancer patient in Vietnam, and they told their stories of how they overcome their cancers, or how they faced death, or how they found communities in each others. So that was a project I really liked, even though I only had like 3 illustrations in that book. But it's just, first thing is I love the stories, and also each time that you work on something that is not your full-time jobs, something that is more of yourself, is very, how to say, it's really a chance to explore your skills.
Do you know when it will be released?
Not so sure because, well, to make an example, I made a book cover, let's say 10 months ago, and it haven't comes out yet. Yeah, so in publishing it could be like that. So I'm not so sure about when it will comes out.
Well, that's really, really cool to hear about. You have other outside personal projects alongside with your work too, because that is also a way that I try to do with this project. I really want to continue this even after my graduation and work it side by side with my work, my design from the work. So this could be a chance for me to, as you say, learn more about my skill and about my design style. So let's talk a little bit about inspiration.
Yeah.
So, do you have any female mentors or role models or inspiration in design, obviously?
In design, well, most of the people that I follow throughout the years are very strong female creative. We had, in terms of graphic design, I always love Paula Scher or Louise Philly, if you know them, and many others, female illustrators as well. In Vietnam, I follow Chị Thùy Cốm, for example, and I have some friends like Siêu Trần, or her name is Chang. Chang learns to art. So there's a lot of others illustrators that is my peers, but I saw them as kind of mentors to myself, mostly because I am more of a self-taught artist, when the others, they have formal education. So we learn from each other in that sort of way. At work, I have mentors. That is my art director. She's Tâm Phạm. She's an art director at Vietcetera. So even though our work doesn't include each other much, because she's more on the graphic design side and I work mostly on editorial illustration. But sometimes it's just a sense of friendship, like having someone there in the team that's also share your sensibilities, for example.
I personally don't have a lot of friends in female friends in design, because I am studying in VUE, which is a school that just launched the creative department 3 years ago. So our students are not that much yet. So among the students, only the not that little, not that few, but still I don't think it's as many compared to other university and also in the workplace too. So I really hope that when I enter the work field, I could have more
yeah, I do think so as well.
So what about so what about being a female designers? Have you ever encountered any difficulties relate to
Not
genders?
really.
When in school or
In my case, because I would say I'm a pretty privileged case because I was in an international university as well, and also my workplace is very progressive. Most of my direct supervisors are female, and we're very young. Most of them are only in 2-3 years older than me. We are very progressive. That's one thing, but it's also we are very decent. So in my case, I don't really sense a sort of discrimination per se, at least in when I was studying and also when I was working full time. And from my friends in illustrations, we don't really have that much discrimination, mostly because because we are freelancing. So our client choose us because of our portfolio without others' information in terms of our personal life, for example. So in illustration, I could say that it's not a bad situation to work as a female creative. That's glad to hear.
Glad to hear.
But I do heard from some of my female friends who is working in graphic design. Not really in agencies, studios, but also in corporate environment, for example. So the situation can differ from place to places, and it really depends on management. If you're working in a company, for example, in terms of freelancing, I'm not so sure because not much of my friends are freelancers, so I cannot talk on that scope. The kind of discrimination can differ from places to place. So some places can be just simple saying, oh, the female creative are too sensible or too sensitive. Or it could be wage gap. So female creative can be paid much lower than their male counterparts, especially if they are expat males, workers, for example. So that is some of the problems that do exist. Yeah.
That's an interesting point, because when preparing for this project, I did a lot of researches on the situations of difficulties, gender difficulties for female designers. We haven't had a lot of researches on the situation in Vietnam in particularly, but in the world, or in US and UK, there's a lot of cases like you said about pay gap and some difficulties in networking, because sometimes women find it a little bit hard to communicate with men because gender differences and gender shyness. So I personally very glad to hear that you yourself don't have to encounter those difficulties, and you are working well, and your illustrations are being appreciated by the quality of it, not because you are a female designer or a male designer or anything. So that is actually a kind of a goal for the design community when it comes to gender equality in general.
So it's probably very hard to say how the difference between it's really hard to know whether or not there is symptoms, let's say, of gender inequalities in our industry, because I'm not that of a senior person as well, and I only have my work experience in one company and some others projects. But one thing that I do notice is that there is a lack of female representation in what is so-called the big names in design in Vietnam. If you notice, there's actually more more seniors designers or art directors or creative directors in our industry more than more males and females. It's just something that we see on the surface. It's really hard to know like why there is so much more male actors and designers, senior designer out there rather than females. So I hope that if you have the chance to talk to more seniors, workers, for example, you can get an understanding of why there's such occurrence. Mm-hmm.
That is actually one of my goals for this project too, to find more female representatives in the design industry. Like to get to know and to get to share the stories of lots of amazing and inspirational female creatives. And that is also a way to motivate the girls and, the young girls who are interested in design, and to motivate them to start learning and choose this career. So, let's talk a little bit about something more fun.
Sure.
Being a woman in design, a female illustrator. What do you love about that?
In my case, when I work as an illustrator for a media company, it's really fun to see myself as the audience, for example. So I work mostly on illustration for our lifestyle content. It's more like well-being, psychology related contents, or contents about relationship and loves, or finance management. And we have a lot of females reader on that. So when I work on that, we do try to include a more diverse representation of what does it look like to be a female in Vietnam, for example. So we include women of all sizes, of different ethnicities, for example. And when we work on articles on relationship, for example, it doesn't have to be a heterosexual relationships. It could be a lesbian relationship or gay, or it could be ambiguous. So it's fun to like mix it up a little bit here and there, represent everyone more diverse, like send an indirect message to our audience out there that if you look like this, we feature you as well.
So, diversity seems to be a really key point in your work, and as well as your writing.
So it's like, it's obvious for me that I do have to include everyone and be diverse. It's not a kind of message that I have to consciously pushing out, but it's more of something that is always there in the back of my mind, and always in the back of our mind as a team as well.
Yeah, I personally really like, editorial work, media work, communication work too, because I believe that storytelling is a very important key point of design. That's why I really enjoy reading Vietcetera, and it's Gen Z's take on the news. So I really wish that you guys could develop more and more, so to reach to other generations too, not just us Gen Zs, like to our parents, to older audience, so they can have a view into what we
Yes. So we do have the privilege and the luck to work with some contributors. More of us have a senior standing of KOLs that is not millennials or Gen Z, but like also in Gen X generation, for example. So they can speak from their perspective, and also their very own audience are also older as well. So for example, Chú Giang Đặng, or like Professor Nguyễn Phương Mai. So their audience is more mature, for example. Yeah.
Wow.
So
do you know Nguyễn Phương Mai?
No, I don't work. I don't work personally with her, but we have collaborated with her for some for some articles.
Wow,
Yeah.
I idolize her so much. I idolize her as a feminist. I read every articles of her. And I read 2 books
Yeah.
of her too. Big fan right here.
Yes, a big fan too. So it's kind of how to say it. Yeah, we really hope that the COVID will pass, and maybe someday she can be on our podcast on Have a Sip, for example, because it would be amazing to hear her and Shi Tu-ming speak together.
Exactly. Oh my god! Imagine that conversation. It's gonna be
Yeah.
legendary.
So it will be so much fun.
Yeah. Speaking of Yi Tu-min, she's also a really, really interesting woman that I follow on the internet, and she has a lot of interesting take on life too. Do you happen to have a lot of chance to talk to her and work with her?
I don't have much chance to work one-on-one with her, but she's just amazing. So she steers our team in the good directions, and she gave us the freedom to try so many new things. Especially in my part as an illustrators, I never have a problem working with the team because they always let me and my freelancers sort of try everything, experiment whatever possibilities out there. So it has been great to have a boss like her.
Even though she's not like a designer, but I really hope that people like her, female director like her, she might not be a creative director, but she's still a director, that we will have more female creative director like her in the future.
Yes. So it's how to say? Yeah. You can move on. I totally forgot what to say.
It's okay.
Don't worry.
So, yeah, we're really close to the end of our interview. The final questions would be that, well, after all of those experiences that you had, all the things you've learned on the way, what would you say to your younger self, to the girl who's about to be an illustrator back then? What would you advise her?
Personally speaking, I still don't know what I'm doing right now. I guess that is something that you will hear a lot. You hear a lot of with others creative as well. That is, they don't know what they're doing right now because
Me neither.
in general, creative industry and also graphic design is a relatively young industry in Vietnam. So there is no proper pathway of how to become a senior designers or how to become an art directors, for example. So everything that we learn is on the jobs. I do have to say that our creative education is still lacking in many aspects because our industry is still young. So it's very hard for the students to know how to direct themselves after they graduate, for example. So in my case, if I have to say something with my younger self, let's say turn back time 4 to 5 years ago, I would say just do things. I was very scared to try new things when I was back in uni. And even right now, I still, let's say, even on my daily jobs, for example, it's very hard for me to try new things, like totally new techniques, or like new ways of storytelling, for example. So if there is something that I regret, is that I haven't tried many different things before I enter the job, enter the work market. Yeah, before I enter the industry, for example, because right now it's very hard for a full-time creative to carve out some times to just do things. So that's one. Just do different things. Making collage, for example, make a new typeface, illustrate everything's in traditional medium. So do whatever it could be that your times allow. That's first thing. Second would be probably make more friends. So that's something that I really do regret, that I didn't try my best to maintain the relationship that I had before. And right now, as I work full-time and I move between cities, it's really hard to make new friends or like maintain old relationships. So, and friends is like probably the biggest source of learning for me right now. I learn a lot on the jobs, but like most of the tricks and most of the motivations that I receive are from my friends. For example, if I have a struggling days at work, I will say something on my Instagram, for example, and my illustration friends will comes in and we talk about it a little bit, and then we try to find what is the reason. And most of the time, that kind of feedback from friends in the industry help the most. So when I talk to my coworkers, it's more work related. But when we talk with someone who is in the industry, they can also they knows our personal struggle, and also they knows about our career struggles. So it makes a good blend of friendships and mentorships. So that's two things. Like
that's why you say that
make more friends.
that's also why you say that you had a lot of female mentors who are actually your friends too, right?
Yeah, not that much. I would say if I push myself a little bit more, maybe I will make more friends, but I'm too introvert for that. So just a little bit, but quality is more important. As long as you have like really cool friends, it will be very helpful. I do have to say that working as like freelance creative, or like just working in the creative industry in general, it could be very lonely sometimes, whether you are a male or females or not, because you always have the sense that you have to pump out new works all the time, and you feels like your work and your identities is always blended to one another. So your identity is as a creative person, and you have to make works in order to affirm that identity as a creative. So you just need to have friends, or like you just feels like life is just about making illustration, for example. And it could be very gruesome if you think all your life worth is just making stuff.
It is true. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for the advice, so I'm gonna take that.
I think it's an advice for everyone out there, because I experience it firsthand. I think too much about work, and I need to stop thinking about work sometimes. So yeah, people make friends.
I think it's kind of a Gen Z thing about like deadlines and work and thinking about work and working, hustle control culture in general. It's like a Gen Z thing.
Yeah. It's a hustle culture thing. So
sometimes we need to slow down, stop hustle, and make some friends.
Yeah, just differentiate between your work and your life, basically. So make a line between your own identities as a person and your identities as a creative. So it's make things more balanced, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all the good advice and interesting stories that you just shared. And, thank you very, very much for agreeing to join the project again.
No worries.